Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Greetings of peace, love and light. Hello world. I pray you're in a blessed state. Welcome to Path and Present Podcast. I am Baraka Blue, and I am broadcasting from the rainy Emerald City, Seattle, Washington, on this beautiful morning in January 2020. Alhamdulillah, this conversation is an exciting one. It's a good one with Sister Ieasha Prime, who is a friend of mine and really a gem of the North American Muslim community as far as scholarship, activism, and a number of things. I had the blessing of traveling with her, co-leading a group with Celebrate Mercy to Jerusalem last year. It was a blessed trip. So we talk about that and our travels and, many other things related to her journey as well. Before starting the podcast, I wanted to give a few updates. One is that we're just completing our first iteration at Rumi Center for Spirituality and the Arts, which is the online platform where we're teaching courses on writing, poetry, spirituality, etc., Sufism. And the beginning of the year, we started a brand new course on the poetry and philosophy of Maulana Rumi, the great beloved poet of the East and the West. And it's been really amazing. We've had almost 60 people from all over the world take this with us this month. And it's sad to see it come to an end, but I'm really grateful for that opportunity. And inshallah, we'll be offering that next quarter as well for anyone who's interested. But this quarter, we have a iteration of Opening the Eye of the Heart, which is our kind of flagship writing program about writing as spirituality and contemplation, writing as a means of seeing the world differently, seeing the metaphor and the meaning in existence. So if you're at all interested in that type of thing, please join us, and you can find out more and you can register at rumicenterworkshops.com. Inshallah. And again, that's not just for writers. That's anyone who is looking to increase their presence, contemplation, and really just read some of the great mystical poetry of the East and West for insight into their own experience and into experiencing the world that we live in. That's that. And then at Wasat here in Seattle, we have a few programs coming up. One that's very exciting. We're bringing Dr. Sherman Jackson, who is one of the kind of thought leaders of Islam in North America, particularly his research on Islam in the Black American, that the real kind of anthropological miracle that there was a mass conversion to Islam in the 20th century from, the descendants of enslaved Africans. And he traces that trajectory in that history. And he has a number of interesting reflections and commentaries and insights, as always, in his writing and in his research. So, alhamdulillah, we have the blessing and the honor of bringing him to Seattle Friday and Saturday, the 21st and 22nd of February, inshallah. And the topics of the programs are on the topic of building a prophetic community. So he's going to present his research on Islam in the Black American, and then also that'll be the first program. And then the second program on Saturday will be focusing on lessons from the Seerah for our times. What is prophetic community? How does the society and the example of the beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam relate to the dynamics of our society and our role in it? So I'm very much looking forward to that. I highly recommend people read Islam in the Black American, which is a really amazing book and really kind of required reading for anyone who is interested in Islam in North America or Islam in the West. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably interested in that. So I highly recommend that. And it's funny, actually, some people have been hitting me up talking about doing a book club or a reading group or something like that. So I don't know. I really just don't have the bandwidth, but that's something that I would love to do. So we'll see. And then we're also, let's see, next week we're bringing Yusuf Chroma, the brother who we've had on the podcast, who's a poet and who is from Philly and who is an Azhari student at Azhar, and a good brother and friend of mine. So we're bringing him to Wasat to share some of his poetry and his reflection and his wisdom. That will be February 5th at Wasat Hillman City Collaboratory. You can go to wearewasat.org to learn more if you're interested, inshallah. So I welcome you to all those events. Come visit us in Seattle if you're not already here. We'd love to see you. And then other than that, I just want to say thank you for your support and for listening to the podcast. It's always a blessing for me when I travel places or, when people hit me up, online or whatever and just tell me that they love the podcast. It means a lot to them. It's a great opportunity and blessing for me to just share these conversations. And I realize that we've been doing it for over 4 years. In fact, this year, I think we started in 2015. I think it was towards the end of the year, like maybe September or something. I got to look back. But this year will be the 5th year of doing this, which is pretty wild, actually. So thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting. It's cool, too, because people are happening upon the podcast all the time, and they have like 5 years of worth of conversations to listen to when they find it, so they can, some people are binging it, But anyway, it's a great blessing, and I'm happy to share these conversations with you all. So yeah, if you have any topics or guests or questions that you would like discussed on the podcast, just hit me up. You can @ Baraka Blue on Twitter or Instagram, or hit me up on Facebook as well. And I always love your suggestions. And then you can also rate and like and comment on iTunes, which helps the podcast grow in the charts so that more people are exposed to it. So please do that if you can. And then if you have the means, you can also support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/pathandpresent is our site. And that's the site which allows you to give $10 a month, $20 a month, or any number that is easy for you. And that's greatly appreciated and helps us do this and keep it alive. So anyway, I pray everybody's well and in a blessed state. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Sheikha Ieasha Prime. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, so we had the blessing of being with you in D.C., in probably a number of other cities with different organizations. And then last year in Jerusalem with Celebrate Mercy. Alhamdulillah, I still remember, being in the sacred precincts in Al-Aqsa and your dua in front of the Dome of the Rock, mashallah. It was powerful. I remember actually, subhanAllah, I don't know if I even ever told you this, but you were making like this really epic dua after, for the listeners. It was actually on the day of the Isra and Mi'raj, and we had like a celebration. We smuggled candy through the Israeli guards for the kids, yes. Right? And then we were like basically a procession with drums and singing and like all the Palestinians. And candy. And like for that, like for those that have never been there, then I was surprised. Like it is really a national holiday. Like all the Palestinians come and they really enjoy it.
And they're like, singing, and they're bringing sweets. Yeah. Even they were passing out sweets in the masjid. It was so beautiful. That was so beautiful. So
we're singing, and then it closed with your dua. And I remember you were doing a really powerful dua, and all these people were coming around. And for some reason, I kind of fell back and was just observing from above, actually, because you were on the steps. And I saw like these Israeli guards come running, actually.
Really?
I don't know if I told you this. Come running. And it was fun because I was standing there and he like passed right by me. Like he didn't even see me. It's like Allah veiled me. So he was like looking. He was like, "What is going on?" And he was asking some of the Palestinian women were like, because he was like, "Who is that? Who is she? Who is she?" And the Palestinian women were like, "I don't know." Like, like, I never seen her. I ain't never seen her. And so he was on this like little earpiece, right? And then I was just observing, like, wow, what's really about to happen? But then he just kind of dipped out, and so.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Like, what is she praying for?
But yeah, Jerusalem, was that your first time, right?
No, that was my second time.
When you were, tell me. Yeah, was it when you were younger? Was that you or that was Muhammad?
Yeah,
Muhammad Mendes. Like he had this experience there.
That's actually how he became Muslim. Yeah, that's his journey. But no, I had actually come the year before that, on like a whole another epic trip, where it was actually really different from Celebrate Mercy. It was more about really learning the plight of the Palestinians. And like seeing their situation and hearing from them, seeing the refugee camps and their struggle, and really connecting it to a lot of the struggle that's going on in the States. You know what I mean? And how our struggles are connected, like directly connected. That was a powerful and intense trip for a different set of reasons. Right. You know what I mean? So when we came, just kind of celebrating, the night journey and just like the spiritual aspect of it. I mean, for me, just the fact that we get to be, that we get to share space, that we get to pray, that we get to make dua, that we get to make dhikr, that we get to sing in places where all of the Anbiya, gathered, and the Prophet ﷺ led them in Salah. Yeah. And I don't know if you know, like, when you guys there was a moment you guys were, had gathered, and I dipped out, right? And I dipped out because there was, there's that room to the left where we went to pray in that musalla, where they say the room where Ieasha, when he comes, that he will come into this room, and the Israelis will lock the door. Right? Which for me was funny, because I was like, well, if you don't believe in it, why you lock the door? Right. But I was like, I just want to spend some more time in that area, which was a whole nother, I was like, let me steal away and get a little secret moment in this room. And then coming out and seeing, the crowd that had gathered and was singing, and the kids, and yeah, that was just, mashallah.
Yeah, I mean, I think nothing can really prepare you for that place, and nothing is like it. I've traveled a lot of places, but there's something extremely unique, and I feel like one of the ways that I kind of was contemplating it is, it's like all of the names of Allah are turned up full blast there. So like you have this like Ar-Rahman, this great mercy and expansive, but then you have like Al-Qahhar, and like the overpowering, and like the majestic, and the one who elevates and debases, and like, because you'll be seeing these like, very old like Palestinian men and women who are like going to and making sajda at the Dome of the Rock, and then you'll go out and there'll be like this 18-year-old Israeli boy like pointing an automatic weapon at you, and it's just like, whoa, where am I? Like it's so intense,
Yeah, it is.
And
intense.
they even have something they call the Jerusalem syndrome, which is that people that visit Jerusalem, a higher percentage there than anywhere on earth report having either mystical experiences or psychotic breaks. So like get hospitalized. Like this is even secular scientists, they study like, hey,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we have reports in our traditions is like the thinnest of the veils between the samawati wal ard, the angelic realm. And you feel it there, like it's
you totally feel it.
Like it's turned up,
For my favorite spot, I cannot wait to return. I'm actually really missing it this year. My favorite spot is at the mihrab of Maryam, at the door of Maryam, like in her whole section. I want to be locked in there for like for weeks.
I remember when you were there, it was like giddy, just like kid in a candy shop. It was really beautiful.
I can't. I want to be locked there for a long time.
But what your point about like experiencing the plight of the Palestinians is really real, and I think, but a big takeaway for me is like they were so happy that we came. They really were. Like they were like, we don't, we feel like the people forgot about us, and people told us multiple times like the Israelis need to know this isn't just a Palestinian holy site, that the Al-Aqsa, but this is for all the believers. And so when you come, you remind them,
and they said that please keep coming, keep coming. That I was so honored and just felt incredibly blessed to be able to celebrate that with them. Like I have never heard of Muslims so much celebrating Isra and Miraj in that way. You know what I mean? Like even in Tarim, there's some celebration, but to see the entire country doing that, like there were parades, there were bands, there were. I was like, yes, indeed,
all kind of
all kind of stuff. I was like, this is. If you're going to celebrate something, celebrate the night, right? That your prophet went into the seven heavens.
From here too.
You know what I'm saying? Like, celebrate the night that your entire life changed when we got the orders of Salah.
Subhanallah.
Alhamdulillah. And we're all the Anbiya gathered. That's something. That's something to celebrate, right? That's something to have a band for. Right? You know what I mean? Band, bagpipes. Subhanallah. Just even thinking about how they're keeping that tradition alive in the hearts of their children, by them passing out sweets and telling them stories and being able to go to Masjid Al-Aqsa during that time. What a ni'mah.
So that was one sacred city. One other sacred city that we've also both visited is the city of Tarim. I actually had the blessing of going there this summer, which was my first time back in like over a decade. It's really powerful. And I know you were there, and I'm curious about your time, because for those that don't know, it's a very traditional society. In fact, Sayyid Hussein Nasser mentioned, he said there's two societies that essentially made it pretty much midway into the 20th century still in its kind of medieval configuration. Like basically these islands that
haven't changed.
Right. You may say you could probably say like certain Amazonian tribes, but as far as like you could say like, he mentioned it was the Tibetans and the Hadramis. The Tibetans and the Hadramis, they have these ancient, and it's largely because of the difficulty of getting there. Like, of course they traded, but like they couldn't be invaded because Tibet is so high in the mountains, until it was actually eventually, conquered by the Chinese. But then, and Hadramaut is like this, it's difficult to get to. It's this valley near the empty quarter in southern Arabia. It's just, there's nothing worldly you would want to conquer anyway.
Right. So why would we go here?
So for me, going there was really, I say like it's much less like going to a different place on earth and much more like going to a different time in human history.
That's exactly. I mean, every time I'm there, I feel like I stepped inside of a Sira book. And like I there's a very prevalent feeling of I live inside of a bubble, and I know that I've stepped, and the fear of like, oh my God, I have to step outside of this bubble back into the world when you leave. But there's so many beautiful things about Tarim, and so many questions that we have in like that we're talking about in the Ummah are completely resolved there just on existence. You know what I mean? Like, for example, about female scholarship. Like, do we have female scholars? I'm like, in Tarim, every other household, they're female scholars. Like, they're female scholars, like, froth of the sea level of female scholarship with a long line of female scholars, and have been for generations upon generations. And scholarship, like, I remember thinking, like, what we call shuyukh in this country is like a student of knowledge in that country. Barely. Right, barely. So
it's like undergraduate.
Yeah. So I clearly spent time with 15-year-olds who had way more who had way more knowledge and way more understanding, right, than many of our 40-year-olds.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
And yeah, I've thought a lot because they have this. It's they say like the city itself is your master, is your guide, is your sheikh, your sheikh. There's something about this like lineage, this tradition, this almost like resonance of like because they say like that there's an energetic impact based on the deeds or the people that are in a specific place.
Yeah.
So if there's a lot of darkness constantly for generations in a place and like oppression, like you feel it.
Yeah.
But if there's a lot of light and just like ibadah and selflessness and service and awliya and salihin, like you feel it starts to just like radiate through the air.
I've never felt the deen more alive than there.
Yeah.
If someone were to ask me like, where's the deen most alive? I'm like, it's alive with its traditions and it's alive in its relevance to our situation right now. Like, Tareem is alive. It is not, what's the difference between the one who's living and the one who's dead is the dhikr of Allah. So the entire Tareem is alive. It's SubhanAllah. The people who are dead are more alive than the people who are alive at other places. Yeah. Right? SubhanAllah.
And there's like an ineffable quality about it because it's not just there's people that have studied a lot of books, which there are, but there's people that are really transformed and illuminated. And like, I was trying to explain it, like even to like some of my family members, like think of angels. It's like they're more angel than human. And they're just in the like complete selfless, gentle, luminous, pure intentioned, cleansed of any of the turbidity and anxiety that challenges and pulls us down. They're really just there. And so there's this really ineffable and tangible, you have to be there. And in fact, almost like it's not even necessarily, if you translate the books of the teachers, they're things we've all heard. But it's something about, it's not just the words, it's the ruh in the form of in the body of the word.
Yeah. They understand the secret of the word,
experientially, not just as an intellectual exercise. Right. And I think that is what we need to take away, because on some level, if you say like, oh yes, we can learn from this from our society, outwardly as far as the societal norms and everything, it's like they couldn't be more different. So on some level, and I'll kind of joke, brothers and I'm sure sisters leaving there and coming back to the West have that PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, like just totally like can't function, like where am I? It's like you're an alien, like you came to another planet, you got to reacclimate and learn how to breathe the oxygen.
The first time I literally came back from Tareem after having been there for about 2 years, I landed in JFK and there was this huge billboard of, I never forget, it was CK1, like men's cologne, and the man was like laid out on the couch with like in his underwear, and I fell down and started weeping as I was coming through the terminal, and that was the billboard. I fell down and started weeping in all my black hijab, my khibar, and I was like, I know the people were like, what is going on with her? And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I walking back into? Like, I haven't seen, like, forget about the aura of men. Like, you haven't, like, you just, like, you haven't seen, like, what? Like, this is not even, how could this be real? How could this be someone's norm? Yeah.
And I think for Westerners, like, looking at that, like, okay, well, that's just a super conservative society. And I could even see, like, growing up in a very liberal West Coast environment, like, but, like, even I understand that vantage point. But the thing about it that I'm so glad I got to experience that at a really young age, because one thing that comes with that kind of like, modesty and even like kind of like separation of the genders in a way that's like just not present in the modern world is an intense like sensitivity. Like we become so desensitized here, like so desensitized, but you acquire this like extreme sensitivity. in your heart, actually. Like, it really, things affect you deeply. But then, like, over time, being back here and being inundated with these images, it's amazing, like, the lack of images, especially of, like, the female, the female or male, just the human form, that, it has, like, it softens you, you know? And, like, Martin Lings had this beautiful quote where he said, traditional Islamic cultures, you know, because, and many traditions have a different iteration, that human beings have they have like an animal side and they have an angelic side, right? The spirit and the...
Remember Ghazali, he talks about that in The Alchemy of Happiness.
And so what Martin Lings pointed out is that traditional Islamic attire for both men and women, it was made to accentuate the angelic form.
SubhanAllah.
This is the loose flowing garments, right? Tight clothing, it kind of like accentuates your animal form, right? And he said, he was even just talking about, because he's like an art historian in Europe, you know, in Europe, and he was saying, like, if you look at medieval paintings of angels, you know, they would be in flowing robes and things like that. And it there's a dignity to it, even though in our tradition we don't usually depict that, but through that tradition you see there's a dignity in that. But he said, imagine depicting an angel in modern clothes, in blue jeans and a t-shirt. It would be like, it's absurd. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it does violence to the even idea. And so he was just saying, like, you should dress to bring out, like, the dress has a reality. It actually affects you. It's not just, right? What we do on the outward affects our inward, and our inward state affects our outward. It flows. It's mutual. So this idea of, you know, wearing these flowing garments, it has an effect on your spiritual reality. So
absolutely, it does.
But one thing that
just even talking about what that does to your spiritual energy, and like, you know, even the alignment of your energy when it is not confined, just from a bodily standpoint, it has effect.
So, but because the you know, and there's like parallel worlds in Turin where the women have their souk and their like society, right?
They do.
And the men have their society. So I'm just curious what it's like, because I have never been on the other side of that. Like, with the you know, the scholars there, the female, you know, habaibas, and just what it's like, you know, what your experience being with those women of, you know, descendants of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Outward scholars, inward salihin, transformed, illuminated women of Allah.
Of course you're wondering. Because you're veiled from that reality. Of course you're wondering, right? Everybody wants to know what's going on behind the veil. So I don't know. You know, it is the greatest lesson in understanding why women have their space. It's not about, in that society, it's not about, there is absolutely no discrimination inside of it. There's no oppression inside of that. Actually, it's the opposite. Because women have access to both, as opposed to the men don't have access to both, right? So women can sit and listen to, you know, all of the habaib. They can listen to the durus. They can listen to the lessons. But the men don't get a chance to go on the other side of the world. Which, for example, one way this is depicted inside of Dar az-Zahra, you know, Dar az-Zahra is the women's university, and long story short, when a male teacher comes to teach in Dar az-Zahra, he comes through this small door, and he sits in a very small room that has a curtain. So he's in a room by himself, and the girls are like freely, you know, sitting in class. And he's the one sitting in the room behind this curtain. And so if they want to submit questions or anything like that, you know, they submit it through the curtain. And he's the veiled one, right? Which is so amazing. And I remember one day I came, you know, like right in the middle of the day. And I was coming to Dar az-Zahra, I think it's, you know, like around Asr time. And I saw these men sitting outside on the steps. And I thought, I wonder why all these men are sitting outside on the steps. And so I could hear one of my teachers talking. And so all these, basically they were some of the higher students of Dar al-Mustafa, had a serious fit question that they couldn't answer. And so one of the top teachers at Dar Mustafa said, the one who has the answer to this is Ustada Rafa. You have to go to the Dar and have a class with her. So they were all sitting like in the dirt on the steps, and she's like behind this curtain, teaching. And if they knew, like, this wisdom, this high level of fiqh at that time was coming from a 22-year-old woman. Subhanallah. Like, and how powerful and knowledgeable she is. And yet, it's subhanallah, if they could see her form, you would just be like, Kaif, how about you? It's just like, this is just subhanallah. So that was, it would be things like this that you would witness the power of women and respect for them. Like, respect for their knowledge, respect for their space. And that gendered space actually allowed us a full femininity. Right, yeah, that gendered space, having that a full femininity in a way that we just never even thought about expressing in this society. Like, and that femininity is not in relationship to men. Do you know what I'm saying? Absolutely. It's not in that space. They're not curbing themselves. They're not having to behave a certain way because men are present. They're not doing it to attract their attention. That was some of the understanding of haya, not in relationship to men, but understanding haya in the power that it manifests inside of women who adapt this lifestyle. That was the most like wow reality. Right? Like, when women are together, especially when we would sit in classes where they were in certain lessons, there'd be multiple hababas actually like sitting in front of us giving different classes, and the wisdom flowing from the mouth, we're just like, what planet do they live on? And yet it being very practical. One, I'll give you two things that come to my mind that stick out, and that is, there's one particular time I'm invited to a wedding, and the way the wedding works is, basically the men are in one separate place and the women are in a total separate place. So I went inside, and just like from the outside, you see just black coming into a mud building. Then when you get inside, the beauty and the color and the music and the dance and the whole thing that's going on the inside, it's almost like you can't imagine that's what's happening. So I went up to the roof, and I was like, I just want to see this from like I almost just like I want a bird's eye view of this, because from the roof you can see the outside and the inside. So it's like seared in my mind. I'm standing on the roof, and I can watch the women lining up, getting out of the cars and going inside. And so they're lined up, like it almost looked like black ants, to be honest with you, like going inside this building. And then you see, because there's a place where they, not change, but kind of, take off what they, their outer garment. And then you see them inside, and you're just like, colorful, dancing, singing, and you're just like, subhanallah, like and inside of it, and not in a what is the word I want to? Not in a grotesque, not in an immodest way, because it's not in relationship to the male gaze. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like this femininity turned on blast. You know what I'm saying? And it's just so beautiful to witness. It's so beautiful.
There's something to that, and I thought about, I relate to that, because in our society here in the West, there's very, for men to like really bond without the, a female's presence alters the way that men interact with each other.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. And so, like, there's a few, maybe the barber shop, maybe, right? Maybe there's a few spots like that. Maybe if you go, hunting or hiking or like something where you could just really, but there's something that happens in that space.
Exactly.
And that's incredibly valuable. And I think that's something that we want to, we should really honor and think about.
And as you're describing it, right? This is like a rare occurrence. This is like you got to organize something to do that, or the barbershop. Like you've got to you've got to have. But this is a daily experience for women. Yes. This is their daily life. So like one particular time, the second one I wanted to tell you about was we went to visit Ostada Zainab, which is very like a daily occurrence after Maghrib. We go visit her in her home, and so we go visit her. And there are a group of women around, so she's in her home and she's like, come with me to the kitchen, because she's making bread for her family. And so she pulls she's like got her scarf tied back and her sleeves are pulled up, and she's like making this bread over this it's like a traditional oven, like a clay oven type thing, but it's all in front of her. So she's making this bread, and she's like giving us classes, like she's giving us like the highest of deen, and she's like making this bread. And so I say to her, Osada, you have to come to America, right? I was like, you just have to come to America and teach the sisters there. And she looks up and she's like abadan, like she's like, I would never. She's like, I've heard stories of you Westerners talk about what happens in America, and she's like, I would never. Like, no, I'm never going there. And so, but what I had heard her say many times is that she wanted to give dawah all over the world, right? So when she said that, I remember, I at this moment I questioned her in my heart, right? And I kind of sat back, like from the rest of the group, and I sat back in some sort of judgment, and I was like, how is she going to give dawah all over the world? And she's not even, she's not leaving
this village,
right? This village. So as I sat back, kind of looking back at her, like, questioning her, Allah just kind of opened my gaze, and I was looking at all of the students who were sitting around her clay oven without any exaggeration. There was a sister there from Singapore. There was another sister there from Sweden. There was another sister there from Australia. There was another sister there from the UK. Another sister there from Kenya. There was another, and me from America. And all of those people, and I think one from Indonesia, and all of those are all teachers in their region. And I was like, oh, this is Nia Salihah. Like, she is teaching Deen all over the world, and she's not leaving this village. She's going, you know what I mean? Like, she has spread, subhanAllah, like literally from Australia to Singapore, it's going, the world around. She's taught Deen, and she's not leaving that village, subhanAllah.
SubhanAllah, yeah, and I've always thought about Sheikh Marabat al-Hajj, like, it's like, he literally, this tiny village in Mauritania, he said it's too worldly, so he went out into the desert. Literally looks like you're on the moon out there, where there's nobody, just a tent, a few goats maybe, and just to worship and just to teach. And like, he literally went as far away as you could get from humankind, essentially. And yet, because so many people, including very prominent scholars from other countries, came and studied with him, in some way you could make an argument that he's had more effect on Islam in the world than almost anyone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And he never left that tent.
Right. So how Allah will accomplish your, like, that's true tawakkul. That's true understanding that I'm not the one who's doing it. Like, I make the intention. Like, it's the difference between me going to the world and Allah bringing the world to me. I don't know. Like, that's tawfiq. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, in that moment, I was like, that's Nia Salihah. That's tawfiq. Like, subhanAllah. And I remember she had gotten pregnant, and, it became a little bit difficult for her to walk from her home back to the university. So it's just one of those beautiful things. So her husband built her a musalla space on the back of her house So she would enter from her kitchen into like this beautiful musalla space that we would come and do the burda and come and like do durus with her, like inside of this space. And I remember thinking, so like, you know, women who are trying to build like all women musallas or all women masajid, like, you don't even know. You don't even, you know, subhanAllah. That's just thinking about the blessing. And I was like, for sure, her home, you know, is one of those lights that the angels see from, you know, from the sky looking down. Like,
yeah. We went, when I was there in 2006, we went, Habib Omar was having this reoccurring dream of Fatima Zahra, the daughter of the beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Allah be pleased with her. And he was having this, she kept saying, go meet my daughter, or go find my daughter, or go look after my daughter. So, and somehow through the dream he was able to find that there was a woman in a pretty distant village. I mean, it was 4 or 5 hours drive away, named Hababa Sophia.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you had the chance, but we had the blessing to drive there, and the you know, the men students would go and visit. So we got a caravan one day and we went there, and I remember it's very remote, yes. And we enter her home, and I remember just sitting in the home waiting to go to her room, and her family was there, and they were like, you know, in that region, as you know, the Sidr honey, the best honey in the world. So they were like old-fashioned, like 1,000-year tradition of like honey harvesters. They sold honey and harvested it. So we were just sitting with them, and then we went up, and again we entered her room, and she was very old, over 100 years old.
Over 100 years old.
And her room was so simple. It was like you said, it was just mud. And I remember she had one niche where she had a picture of Habib Omar in the room. That's all that was there. I just remember. And then I remember she was laying there, and you know, I just remember she was in this very like high pitch, almost like shrill voice. She just kept saying, "Sali ala Nabi," send prayers on the Prophet, and it like sent shivers down my spine. Just her voice, you know, you could hear 1,000 people say that, but just her saying that, it like made me shake actually.
Yeah.
And then I remember we knelt and we were asking for dua, and she just, and actually the entire time that we were going there for all those hours, it was really beautiful. All of the brothers, we went around in a circle in the car and shared an intention. And then the next would go, and we kept going, and we had so much time that we just like, I mean, it was like an hour long, you know, multiple hours long intentions, like, okay, and we would be inspired by each other. So it was just like, and we got there, and she said, all your intentions are answered. Ask now. It's open. And we're just like, and I remember one of the brothers, Musa Penfound, who's a dear beloved brother to me, one of his dua, he said he asked for his grandmother, you know, to enter the path of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, because he was a convert. And there was another brother there that was blind, and he asked for a vision. I just remember it was so intense. I was just like, yeah, but a few years later, I think 3 years later, I talked to Musa, and he told me that his grandmother, or maybe it was his mother, I can't remember. I think it was his mother actually. His mother took Shahada, and then the next day he heard that Hababa Sophia had passed away that day. So like as her soul left, the dua was answered. I mean, these type of things, these type of people, you know.
I have to ask you this question. When in 2006 was that?
The summer of 2006.
I was there in that summer of 2006. And I visited Hababa Sophia in that summer.
Subhanallah. We were there at the same time, but we would have never known.
Ajib.
Subhanallah.
Ajib.
So, I mean, I think just when we think of those places or any of the other places that you've been and had the opportunity to study with and the people you've been able to be with, you know, one of the things we are reflecting on is in these lands of North America is, you know, transmitting the prophetic inheritance from these people who have inherited. Again, it's not ilm fi sudur wa laysa fi sutur. It's in knowledge. It is true knowledge is in the hearts of human beings, and it's not in lines on paper. And so it's a transmission that's not merely, oh, we can look this up on Wiki, we can read it. No, it's a being. It's a way of being. It's a transmission
from heart to heart.
And so, I mean, there's a lot that we have of work, but I think specifically I'd love to hear your thoughts on that relating to female scholarship in these lands.
SubhanAllah. Sitting with Hababa Safia, the first time I met her, 2003. And I was so overwhelmed with anticipation and wanting to meet her. I will never forget the first thing she said to me when I came in. She said, "Marhaba, marhaba." And she said, "Khadija told me you were coming." And I was like, "Khadija, which Khadija? which one you? I'm trying to go through my friends list of Khadija. Did you know you were Khadija?" She said, "Khadija al-Kubra." He's like, "Khadija al-Kubra told me you're coming." And I was like, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." She was the first time, what I remember about her is that also she's 100 and something, and she would veil her face, right, from the men who were present. And it was upon seeing her face that I finally understood when it talks about that one of the beauties of the women of Jannah is that their skin will be translucent, like it will be transparent. And I couldn't imagine that as beautiful. I was like, I don't understand how that can be, like, that sounds odd, like alien, like that doesn't sound beautiful. And then I met her, and the light illuminating from her made me understand the women of Jannah and how they're translucent, and the fact that their skin would be transparent was beautiful. That she was just subhanAllah. The meeting Hababa Safia was the first time I understood the beauty of the women of Jannah. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. She was
and I think there's no substitute for meeting people who truly embody the prophetic inheritance. And I think, there's people I say like that I met there that they expanded my understanding of what a human being could be just by looking at them. And that they became my reference point. Like, a human being, we think, all human beings are flawed, and, there's like these walking contradictions, and, most are, but there's people that really have attained that nafs al-mutmainna, that tranquility.
SubhanAllah. Hababa Safia.
Alhamdulillah.
Allah continue to raise her rank. SubhanAllah.
But when you think of our time and our lands and the importance of women scholars, and kind of the fact that I wonder if you have any reflections on that.
The main thing I think about is the level of acceptance. I think I think there's so much war within ourselves, and that war within ourselves is a clear inability to surrender to divine decree, and then as a result we lose the blessing of that which is associated with it. And so within these, when they talk about if you don't have a sheikh, the streets of Tarim will be your sheikh, like it will guide you. Just thinking about being able to, coming from the West, being able to submit to that veil, right? That black, I remember asking my teacher, I was like, okay, so I'm wearing this black khimar, this black abaya. Like, I was like, is it gonna make me cool? And she's like, no, you're going to be hot, and you're going to drip sweat. And I remember looking at her like, okay. She's like, yeah, don't worry. Like, you're gonna be hot, you're gonna sweat. I'm like, of course you are. Don't think that there's going to be like some transcendent physical experience. Like, but subhanAllah, nothing became more beloved to me. You know what I mean? SubhanAllah, nothing became more beloved to me in those years and even the time after. But I remember being very clear about the fact that it takes, to be able to do that in order to learn and to benefit. Was just, it was almost as if it was the first initiation process into whether or not you can take the heat of the burning of your soul, that's like burning off the impurities of your soul that are about to take place over a period of time. Right?
I thought about that too. Obviously, just being there, because it's like food is very simple, and to put it lightly, and like it's super hot, and you're basically in a constant state of discomfort. It's like at least slight physical discomfort, right? But I really do. I was thinking about that when I was there this time. Like, it's almost the benefit, the openings, the khair, the spiritual realities are almost inseparable from that. Yeah. Like, if you didn't have that, it wouldn't be the same. There's something about that provides means, and there's something about the fact that, like, we're so sensory. Like Rumi says, most people are drunk on the five senses. Because it's so, we think it's real, and then when somebody passes away or something, we get, oh wait, this is all perishing, wait, this isn't eternal, wait, all that I thought I had, what was important, wait a second. But like when you're in places like that where it's actually it's physically and the sensory, there's great actually difficulty. It's not like everything's so easy and whatever. There's actually like there is something about it that polishes you, or that, what?
Yeah. I think, we have become a community that is obsessed with safe space, right? And the concept of safe space. But in reality, safe space doesn't necessarily allow us the uncomfortability necessary to grow. And so what I remember, is that it wasn't always what we considered safe space. Like, you're not always going to be comfortable. Like, part of growth is you're going to feel there's some uncomfortability. There are times you're going to feel very put on the spot. There are times you're going to feel like called out.
No privacy.
Right,
no creature.
Right, the creature. Like, that's part of it, right? Like, that's, but through that removal of my safe space, right? That it's in that growth begins to happen. Like, and I think the problem, the challenge, should I say, with us in the West is that, our political correctness, our need to not offend, our, like, because I gotta create I gotta always be in safe space. There's something to be said about creating comfort for people, and there's something to be said about making people feel welcome. That's for sure. But then there's once you're welcome and you're acclimated and you're here to grow. Right. Like, that's,
and this is what it is here, and this is what we do here.
This is what we
do here.
Right.
Get with the program.
Get with the program, right? Because this program is spiritual growth, and spiritual growth happens when you can remain curious and engaged when you're uncomfortable, even in your own skin. Like, I'm very, right? I'm feeling checked. I mean, I'm feeling checked, and I don't know, and because what is that? My ego has come full bloom, and subhanAllah, Habab Noor is known for, like, just her queenliness is, she is unapologetically Muslim. You want to talk about unapologetically Muslim? She is unapologetically Muslim. Not politically correct Muslim. Not, I'm not here to appease you, Habibti. I'm here to help you grow into the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He created you to be. And so, and in that, I love her. Like, you're just like, I love you. Right? SubhanAllah.
MashaAllah.
And I'm not talking no harsh correction. I'm not, no, but like, I'm uncomfortable. That's okay. You know, it's okay. Get with it.
I need to sleep more than this. I need to eat more than this.
Yes.
No, we don't do that here.
We don't do that here, right? I need to sleep more than this. I need to. Yes.
You know?
You waking up at 4
a.m. You start to feel, once you start to taste the transformation, then you actually yearn for it. And then it's like a lot. You know, there's nothing that you can want more. And then and that, you know, the beauty of that submission, you really like, okay, this is what it is.
So it's the whole thing, you know, I think about for example, part of our comfortability is that we don't like to remember death, right? Sure. But in Tidium, everything is about death. Like they're talking about that, and someone would think this is so morbid. No, it's like
it's almost like you would think they love death. They're like, I can't wait to go to the graveyard. That's the highlight of the week.
Right, I'm going to the Zambo.
You know right? I'm like, we grew up like, ooh, it's spooky. Don't go there. Like, well, late night. Ooh, and then they're like, oh man, I just need to go to the graveyard, man. It's been a rough week, you know, or whatever.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Spend 3 hours amongst them. You know?
Literally 3 hours in the graveyard, making dua and reciting.
Different. I was like, wow, it is beautiful here. I want to come back here more
often. It's full of light, and you know, just their constant reminders, like they're more alive than we are, right? And the constant reminder that this is where we're going, Habibti. Are you willing to meet this place? Like the life that we're living is not promised. There's nothing promised inside of that. This is what's promised. Are you preparing for that, right? Which is going to be way longer. You know, you're going to, as they would always say, you're going to be in the earth much longer than you were on top of it. So if you spent time trying to distract yourself from the reality of things, you missed the point, right? You wasted. You should have died a long time because you're sucking up air. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I mean, I'd love to keep going, but you have an event soon tonight. We want to give you some time for preparation, so we'll have to do a round 2 next time you're in town. Inshallah, Allah bless you. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.